This work is about people and a little bit about me. I've noticed that through life I always meet people who know someone that I know, which is really weird, and I don't know how those conversations start, but this always seems to happen. And sometimes I know those parties really well, and I had no idea that they knew each other, and sometimes I stumble across someone who is basically a stranger who's linked to my life inextricably. What I wanted to do here was explain that in a physical format. I chose the connections people had and mapped them in a quilt. I then turned it into what you can see here. This is not a project that ends here. It's something that would continue as a development as I meet people, because it's quite a nice thing. I thought it's a record of meeting people and the connections that we all have. Some of them are not extraordinary, whilst others really freak me out when they happen. All of what I will tell you is true. Because some of them are really weird. So the first one, that's me. I met my best friend Alice, who has the same name as me when I was 5. She was always going on about this family called the Howletts, who Alice's parents knew from university in Cambridge. Natalie Howlett was a year younger than us, and her godmother was Alice's mum, Kate. When we were 13, Alice went to Nat's christening and met some of Nat's friends, including Troy. Fast forward 7 years, and it's first night of Freshers Week. We were made to play this ridiculous game of heads and tails, and I met these two lovely girls, Troy there, and Sophie. I now live with Troy and Sophie. So after a few weeks I found out that Troy came from Cambridge. I then found out that Nat was one of their best friends, and that Troy had met my best friend Alice 7 years before I knew her existence, which is weird. Troy crops up again. As a kid I spent lots of time in Menorca. When we were 12, when I was 12, I met this boy called Angus. I got to know his family quite well. At university, Troy kept talking about this boy Angus Frost and his massive family, and surprise, surprise, it was the same guy, so we were linked again. And Angus Frost also knows Harry Brooker, who is a friend of Michael's over there, and also a friend of us. So then, talking about Menorca again, there are further connections. I met this girl, Nonnie, when I was about 10, and her brother. 2 years later, I went to my godmother's 50th birthday party, and it turned out that Nonnie and Ed were her step-grandchildren. A few months ago, I discovered that Ed, who is my boyfriend, was mutual friends with Nonnie on Facebook. So I asked him about it, and not only did I found out that they lived on the same road in London, I also found out that they'd gone on a date when they were 17, and that his younger siblings were at school with her younger siblings. And Ed lives with Grisha, who is also childhood friends with Nat from Cambridge. And Nat's ex-boyfriend is friends with my cousin. Anyway, Nat's obviously quite significant in all this. Where am I going? Not sure where I am. Oh, wait a sec. Right, so Troy and Nat kept going on about this girl, Daisy. I met this girl, Maria, over there, in second semester. We had no idea that these two lived together for about 5 months, until both me and Troy were invited to their parties separately and met each other there, which was weird. Right, this one's quite weird. So, when I went travelling in India with my ex-boyfriend, Matt, down there, we ended up in India in an ashram, where we met this girl called Tifan. After a few short conversations, I found out that she was from Peckham, which is round the corner from where I was at school. And then it turned out we were at the same school, but she was 7 years above me, so that's not so weird. What I then found out was that her first cousin, Siobhan, is in a long-term relationship with my first cousin, Robin. Sorry, protection's not so good. And that was weird. That was very weird. Do you want me to keep going? I have quite a few more. Okay. Talking about my family, I met this girl called, sorry, this isn't working so well. I might just keep going. this girl called Jess, who's at Edinburgh University. She'd been talking about my friend Barney, who was visiting me in Edinburgh. And Jess spoke to me about the